Are you serious about collecting comics, or do you want to become serious about collecting comics? Well, then this video is just for you. Hey Web World, Scotty D, thanks for stopping by. You know, I picked up a book recently that I feel is an essential tool for that comic book collector that has made the transition from being a general comic book collecting hobbyist to being a hardcore fanatical comic book collector. And when you've reached that pinnacle point in collecting comics, I believe that you've now transitioned into a category that I like to call the comic book curator, where you no longer tolerate amateur mistakes in your collection, and you no longer tolerate amateur mistakes in buying and selling or trading of comics. So this book is an essential tool that you need to have at your disposal. If it's not in your arsenal of tools for maintaining and caring for your collection, you need to get it. There'll be a link in the video description below. What I'm talking about is the Overstreet Guide to Grading Comics. Now, you're saying to yourself right now, Scotty, I don't need this guide to grade comics. There are third-party grading companies out there. And you're right, there are third-party grading companies out there that you can send in your comics. But you see, this guide supersedes all of the major players in the third-party grading market, because this guide has been around for a long time. It started with its first edition back in 1992. The second edition was published in 2003. Then the third edition was published in September of 2006. And then recently, November of 2014, this guy hit the streets and was for sale. This is the fourth edition of the Overstreet Guide to Grading Comics. Now, I'm going to try to give you some key points in this guide that I think will help you make an informed decision if you want to get this guide. I already personally feel that if you are a fanatical comic book collector, if you are that comic book curator, you need to have this guide. And if you disagree, I'd love to see your comments in the comment thread below, why you think you don't need this guide if you are a fanatical comic book collector. So, this book right here, the fourth edition, is 384 pages short. And I call it short because there's a lot more information that they could have put in here, but the information that they do provide is paramount to allowing you to become a better comic book curator. Now, you're going to get this guide, and you're going to want to jump right back into this section right here, the grading section, where they talk about each and every grading category. They give a description. They give what is allowed, what's not allowed. And they go in great detail to not only give you descriptions, but also give you graphical representations of each comic of its kind. Now, your comic may not look like this, or you may not collect Star Wars comics, but the fact is you can take a look at these pictures, look at your comic, and then compare the two and figure out which category your comic sits in predominantly. And then you can dig in further. There's a lot more detail on that. So you can see there's a 9.9, a 9.4, here's a 9.2, a 9, 7s, 6s, 4.5s, 4s, 3s, 2s, even getting down into some half grades, right? These 0.5s, the 0.1s. Did you even know there was a 0.1 grading category for comics? Well, there is. Now, the importance of the first part of this book is the most critical part of the read, because, like I said, you're going to want to jump to the back of the book and start grading right away. Don't be so over anxious to do that, because you're going to miss out on a lot of information at the front end of this book. The first 95 pages are what I'm talking about. After that, it's the grading section. So the first 95 pages, albeit a small section of this book, are filled with detailed information. Like, for instance, why did they make a new grading guide? Why did they feel after 2006 it was important to create a brand new edition here in 2014 when this book was published? Here is the reasons why that they felt there was a need to generate a new edition. After that, there are some other great things like some acknowledgments, introductions. While you might want to overlook them because it's just an introduction, it's just acknowledgments. No, you need to understand how this book came to be what it is today. There are over 144 advisors that are listed in the back end of this book with pictures. Let me see if I can get to that section real fast. Here are all of the advisors to this book, and they span anywhere from general collectors to dealers to professional graders from the third-party grading companies. And I'm very reluctant to ever say anybody's a professional grader because there's a level of personal opinion when it comes to grading comics. But then there's the guide, which is the foundation by which you work from. Let's see, the evolution of grade. Let's see, what I've got a lot of tabs here because I've gone through here and I've read this book several times already. Past the introduction, yeah, and I put these tabs on here so it's for my edification. I can quickly get to a page. You see right here, I've made little chicken scratch notes up here, acknowledgments and intros. So I can get through this book really fast after I've read it and get back to sections that I feel are important. The evolution of grading. Why is that important? Because we need to know where we've been so that we don't repeat past mistakes while we take care of our comic collection today. So that evolution of grading is going to be a great section for you to read in there. What else do we have in here? The 10-point grading scale. You probably have seen that grading scale somewhere online, but you can't believe everything that's printed on the internet. I've got to tell you that I've seen things so bad as these covers of these grading guides where it's supposed to be the 3rd edition and somebody has edited the photo and put 2nd edition on it and tried to sell it on an auction. You see, you just have to know what is out there and be an informed person. So that 10-point grading scale is right there. What do we have after this? Oh, this is really cool. This bar graph right here, you're not going to find that online that I've understood so far. And that tells you basically how many number of defects are acceptable within a certain grade on your comic. So if you have a, let's call it a very fine to near mint condition, you're only allowed anywhere from 4 to 6 defects in your comic. Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? Well, in this guide, you're going to get that informed information. Let's see. There are, here's the grading definitions. Very important to understand the definition of each because a lot of people think they know what it means, but there's a black and white definition to what each grade is. Let's see, what else do we have in here? The restoration. This is I found this section to be really interesting because you never know if a comic is original. You hope it is. But you see, there are a lot of people out there will pass it off a comic as being 100% original, never touched, it is what it is. But then you find out that they've altered the original comic in some way, shape, or form. And it's now considered a restored comic. And that falls into a completely different category. Even if you send it into a third-party grading company, there is a complete section in here that talks about how they come about grading restored comics. How to describe a comic in a single line. If you buy and sell or trade comics, either online through blogs or threads in communications, or even in auctions, typically the description space is a limited number of characters. And they're going to help you become a better person in that respect by understanding how to describe your comic within a certain limited number of characters. Very, very cool in that. How to grade a comic. Some people think, well, you just sit down, you look at the comic, right? No, there's a whole process. And some of it is very black and white, and some of it you're going to have to figure out what works best for you when you grade your comics. I'm going to be doing a video in conjunction with this one that's going to show you my entire toolkit for grading comics. And I'm thinking about doing a real-time grade of a comic for you on a video to show you what I do when I grade a comic. If that's something you'd love to see, drop a comment below and let me know. Let's see here. Grading Victorian or Platinum Age comics. If that's something that you have in your collection, certainly you're going to want to know how to do it, because they fall into a different realm of processes that you have to follow in order to grade one of those comics. The third-party profiles. I loved this section because it starts out with CBCS, which is one of the newer third-party grading companies on the market, and it talks about the mission statement of the company, how you can submit, the fees, some communication pieces, their addresses, their phone numbers, very important information, and as well as giving you a visual representation of what their encapsulated comic looks like, their slab comic, if you will. Here's CGC. Let's see who else is in here. Halo is in here. Bet you didn't know about Halo, but Halo's in here. PGX. Who else is in here? And here's Vault in here as well. So a couple of good descriptions of third-party grading companies. Let's see what else here. Here it is. CGC, an overview of comic book restoration. They go into great depth of conversation in this book about how they take into consideration grading a restored comic. And here's some information on that in this book. Because you see, while third-party grading companies have been a great additive to the overall industry, the big thing you need to understand is they each have their own nuances, if you will, that you need to be aware of and be educated as a collector, as a grader yourself, in order to respect what comes back to you. Because you see, more often than not, people send off comics to these third-party grading companies, if that's your choice, and they get the comic back and they're disappointed. They feel that the comic should have been a lot higher than what it was. The only way you're going to know where that comic might be, if you want to have it formally slabbed, is to understand the foundation by which comics are graded. And if you're going to buy and sell comics online in auctions, and you don't follow an official grading guide to grade your comics, don't put a grade on your comic. I get so frustrated at this. You know, I buy through auctions quite often for back issues or older comics that I can't find in comic shops. And when I see a seller claiming that a comic is of certain grade, I'll start asking questions. And more often than not, they've just winged it. They've not followed an official process to come up with that grade. They've just kind of guessed and put that into the title or into the description. And when I challenge that, they get very defensive. And I find that more often than not, when a person just haphazardly throws a grade against a comic, they're off big time. Usually a half a point, 2 points, 3 points off from what the actual comic is in its condition. They think it's a lot higher. And then when you go back and you do a formal grading process against it, it's usually 2, 3, 4 points lower than what they think it is, because they don't know how to properly grade a comic. So those are some of the key things in here. A pedigree comic collection. Do you even know what a pedigree comic collection is? Well, they're going to not only tell you what a pedigree comic book collection is, but they're also going to give you some samples and some great reads of some pedigree comic book collections out there. And it's all in all going to help you be a better comic book collector and be in that category that I like to call you as a comic book curator. And if this book is not thoroughly worn out by the time they release the next edition of it, you haven't used it right. This book I got in the end of December, and I read it thoroughly. We're now in the first part of February now, and I have read it at least 10 times. And it's still in great condition. You can see there's some crease mark right here where they've designed the book to crease, which is right there. You can see it right there. This book's going to be worn out by the time the 5th edition comes out. At least mine is. Hopefully yours is as well. The back end of this book, like I said, it's got some really good information. Oh, this section right here. Let me get to it here. the glossary section. There are terms in here that I never heard of before, ever. But now I'm a more informed curator because I've read the glossary and the definitions of the terms and the acronyms that they use and the industry uses as a standard. I'm telling you what, down to, have you ever paid attention to how your comic book cover looks? Like, not the condition, but how it looks. Does it look like it's off-center? Does it look like it's, when it was stapled in, it's stapled a little bit further over where you can see a white line down the spine? All of that matters when it comes to grading comics. Look at that. There's a whole category right there, right in the glossary, of how to determine the cover of your comic. Because it's not the fault of the person selling it or the person buying it, but it's how it was put together at the press. I didn't know some of these things, but after I got this, I do now. Some grading terminologies around the measurements, all great information. I'm telling you what, this is by far the best money I've spent for my collection outside of properly bagging and boarding and storage of my comics. I'm telling you what, now I can really take care of my collection in the proper respect that it's due, because that's the way I feel that my collection should be taken care of. Hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I can't recommend this comic grading guide to you enough. Please take a look at the link in the video description below. Click on it. Get this guide for yourself. It's my affiliate link. I'm going to be very forward with you on that. It's not going to cost you anything more to use that link than you would on shopping directly. What happens, though, is I get the credit for you buying through that link, and that credit helps my channel, so I do appreciate you clicking through that link. But either way, get this grading guide. I can't recommend it to you enough. 384 pages short, jam-packed with tons of information that is a critical tool to have at your disposal if you are a serious comic book collector. Don't forget, comment below. I love to read your comments. Share this video with somebody that you know who is serious or who wants to become serious about collecting comics. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so. All you have to do is go to the main page of my YouTube channel, click on the subscribe button. Make sure you also go to the right of that, click on the little gear icon, enable updates. That's going to let you be notified every time that I post a brand new video here on my channel. Otherwise, YouTube does its own thing, and God only knows what will happen. Some people say they never get notified when I post a new video. That's one way you can help stay informed. I have no control what happens on the back end for that, but definitely click on enable updates on that. And if you already are subscribed to my channel, thank you so very, very much. And if you are one of those serious comic book collectors, there's a link right here on the screen. It's also in the video description below. It's for the Comic Book Curator group on Facebook. Go on over there and become a member. It's free. It's for serious, mature-minded comic book collectors. It's not for those amateurs. It's for the serious comic book collector. The Comic Book Curator group on Facebook. And also, if you want to become more than a channel subscriber here on my YouTube channel, I have a way for you to do so and kick it up and become part of the elite group of subscribers, and that's called a channel patron. Go on over to patreon.com/ScottyDOnline. That link is in the video description below as well. My email, scott@scottydonline.com. My Twitter account is @ScottyDOnline. And until the next video, we'll see you next time, Web World. May the Force be with you.